Hello and welcome to another edition of the Stogie Review video review. And I'm back on the saddle again with the bargain reviews. And this time I've got the Gisbert Maduro Toro. And I picked this up locally for $3.25, as you can see. It's a little bit over the ceiling that I set at $3 after shipping, but since I bought it locally I made an exception because I found them much cheaper online. And for the specifics, now I looked these up in two different places, at JR and at Cigars International, and the numbers conflicted. The sizes weren't the same between the two, the box count wasn't the same between the two, and there was a $10 price difference. So I went with Cigars International because it matched all the information that I had in my Parliament Cigar Encyclopedia. And that would be the Maduro in boxes of 25 for $51 with $5 standard shipping, bringing you to a grand total of $56. Break that down per cigar and you got $2.24, which is roughly $1 less, well, $1 and a penny. And the specifics: this has got a Mexican wrapper, Honduran and Nicaraguan binder, Honduran and Nicaraguan filler, and this is handmade in Honduras. And the size is a 50 by 6. It's the typical Toro. And I'm going to go ahead and look this thing over. And this came highly recommended, as I mentioned before in a previous video. And feels pretty firm, like it's really packed with tobacco. There isn't much spring to it. It's got a couple of light spots in it. They almost look like watermarks. Maybe you can see this one. See that light speck? It's got a couple of those. The veins are fairly small. It's smooth overall, and it's got a really light sheen to it, almost like a satin look. So there are some oils present. So I'm going to go ahead and clip my cigar with my cutter, as usual. Well, not so much as usual. I went with the plug cutter a lot lately. And just a second. And the result's a quick, clean cut. Looks kind of funny. There's a little bit of a divot in there, but I really didn't see the cutter doing that. Anyway. The pre-light draw is pretty stiff. Right away you get a little bit of a sweet taste on your lips from the Maduro wrapper. One thing to note, this is a square press also, so it does fit a little funny in your mouth with the size. Well, it's not terrible, so I'm going to go ahead and start lighting. I'm not going to bother with my draw correction tools just yet. And anyway, I'm going to go ahead and start toasting. It's kind of tough to do this way out in front of me like this. I'm usually on top of it, and you can really see what's going on. It's a different perspective. Now, lighting wasn't all that difficult. It took a little longer than usual, but that's just because the square press feels kind of odd, and the draw is a little stiff compared to what I typically like. But aside from that, it's producing a fair amount of smoke. It's pretty flavorful. Right off the bat, it gives you that standard sort of Maduro taste. You get that light coffee tone with a little bit of chocolate in there. Just that standard Maduro-esque sort of flavor right off the bat. The body's about medium. Yeah, it's about medium. Finish is fairly smooth. It's a little creamy. There's a little bit of spice that kind of gets you right in the back of the throat. But so far it's doing pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and smoke a little bit into this and get back with you in a few minutes. Well, here we are. It's been a couple of minutes. Not real long. This cigar's burning really slow. And the reason I wanted to come back was just to show you that I'm developing some burn problems. And let's see if we can show you this. Right away, as we rotate around the cigar, you can see I got a low spot on the far side. And that's a bit of a problem. I really don't like the way that's turning out. And also, I don't know if you can quite pick this up on the camera, but if you look straight down the cigar, you'll see that the wrapper's starting to lift already, and I'm not even, as you can see, I'm about a quarter of an inch into the cigar at the low end. At the far end, I'm about 3/4 of an inch into the cigar. So right off the bat, we're not looking good. This is starting off worse than the first one I had, which is kind of unfortunate. I'd rather have done the better one on film. Still got that Maduro base. There's a bit of a woody flavor there, but it's not cedar. I'm really not quite sure how to describe it. It's different. Other than that, there's no change. So now that I've pointed out the defects that I've got so far, I'm going to get back to smoking and see you back in a few minutes. Well, here we are again, just a couple of minutes later, and man, it's like a car wreck. I just can't look away. The ash is almost black. The burn is really uneven. That lifting that I'm getting is getting a little bit worse. But on a positive note, the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, back in where it's burning further down on one side, the ash is starting to light up. The ash is becoming less dark. Let's put it that way. Make it easier for me. So I'm kind of hoping that it's just a rough spot in the beginning of the cigar and it'll even out. Aside from that, everything's pretty consistent, and the cigar is burning really, really slow. So really don't know how to take that quite just yet. If it's going to continue to burn really slow and smoke like this, it's going to make for a long night. If I can get past this trouble spot, and it continues to burn slow, it might make for a pretty decent night. So I got some paperwork and stuff to do, so I'm just going to do some paperwork, smoke my cigar, and see what happens in a few minutes. Hopefully everything will even up and we'll be good to go. So talk to you in a few. It's been about 15, maybe 20 minutes, and as you can see, the cigar evened up quite a bit. Fortunately, that really dark ash dropped off and the burn kind of evened up. I really didn't need to touch it up. I just continued to smoke it. I just smoked a little bit slower than usual to try to help, slowly make it catch up without getting it too hot, and continuing to make that fast burning side continue to just burn even faster. So the smoke almost, it feels very thin. I'm having a real hard time getting it through my sinuses, and I'm not really sure how to describe it. It just seems like there's a lot of air and not too much smoke, and I'm having a hard time making it move to get it out of my sinuses. But the very little bit that I can get out of my sinuses is leaving a real mild spice, and I'm still getting a little bit of spice in the back of my throat. It's not bad, but it's getting old quick because it's not, it's not going away. It's not building or reducing. It's just kind of standard, and it's just there. The base flavor still got that woody flavor that I really can't put my finger on. I'm just positive that it's not cedar. And aside from that, it's just got the typical Maduro type flavors. You get a little bit of coffee, a little bit of chocolate, and there's some like, it's like bitter chocolate, and there's some sort of like a semi-sweet flavor gets left on your lips. Overall, it's not a bad cigar. It's fairly mild. It's more mild than I prefer, and like I mentioned earlier, it just burns really slow. It's been quite a while now. I'm sure I've had this cigar lit for over a half hour, 45 minutes, about that, and I'm barely getting into it. So this cigar should really come with a warning label to let you know that you've got a long night ahead of you, or a long day, or whatever the case may be. So I'm gonna smoke some more, see if I can get if I pick up any new changes, and report back to you then. Well, here we are again. As you can see, I'm sort of getting down towards the end. That stiff draw that I was having, I decided to get out my draw correction tools and see what I could do about that. And the inside of the cigar felt sort of soft. It leads me to believe that either the cigar does much better at a drier humidity. I keep my cigars between 68 and 70% relative humidity. So it's possible that either I was storing them a little too wet, or I didn't let them acclimate in my humidor long enough, and I may have purchased them a little wet, which is very understandable purchasing from a cigar shop. So now that I did use the draw correction tool, the draw is much better. The smoke still feels thin, though. I'm not quite sure what that's all about. But the only downside of the draw being much better now is that it really seems to be heating up much faster, and also there's a lot less resistance now, so you seem to get a whole lot of air while getting more smoke. It just seems like you're overdrawing on the cigar to get the same amount of smoke. It's tough to explain, but I don't know how to make it any clearer than that. I'm drawing on it, I'm getting a lot of air, and still not much smoke, while it's much easier to draw. Maybe I should say it that way. Aside from that, the burn's still a little uneven on one side. It's sort of coming and going, which again makes me think that it's possible that this cigar was a little wetter than it should have been. The base flavor is still very consistent. It's still, it tastes like a mild Maduro. The finish is more along the lines of semi-creamy now, where it's not like full-fledged creamy, but it's not leaving you feeling a little parched. So overall, it's not bad, but it's still a cigar that I think a more mild-bodied cigar smoker would appreciate more than I do, because I really prefer the medium to full range most of the time. Well, anyway, now that I've rambled on for a few minutes, I'm going to smoke a little bit more, and I'll be back in a little bit, and we'll wrap things up. Well, here we are again, and it's about time to wrap things up. Because the cigar's getting kind of short, it's still, or I shouldn't say it's still, but it's beginning to get a little harsh on me, and I'm really not enjoying it much anymore. The finish is still a little on the dry side. It's leaving me a little parched. The body's worked its way up to a medium, and it's still got very consistent base flavors that are typical of a mild Maduro cigar. Personally, it really doesn't fit into my flavor profile. I really like the medium to full-bodied cigars, more of a little bit more robust, I should say. But it's really not a bad cigar, and I think that it would be much better earlier on in the day when your palate's not expecting a rush of flavors, where a mild cigar is more enjoyable. I probably would not pay $3.25 for another one of these. I may look around and see if I can get them online for a little cheaper. just because I want to try them again at a lower relative humidity and see if they smoke any different or any better. If they smoke better, I could really see myself smoking these, on a Sunday morning, drinking a cup of coffee, reading a paper. But outside of that, I really have a tough time appreciating it, just because, as I mentioned, I really prefer the medium to full-bodied cigars, and this is a little bit mild for my tastes. Also, that mild spice I mentioned before is really sort of nagging the back of my throat, and I'm not quite sure what's giving that flavor. It could possibly be the Mexican Maduro wrapper, but I haven't had that many Mexican Maduro wrappers to really point a finger at that just yet. So, well, anyway, at 224, it's really not a bad cigar, especially if you prefer the milder ones. So, it really wouldn't hurt to give one a try. If you prefer heavier bodied cigars, it wouldn't hurt to give it a try. It's a decent cigar. I'm just having a little bit of trouble with this one. So anyway, that's about it, and we're gonna wrap things up there. So once again, thanks for watching, guys.